Alright everyone, moving on to 2004's Seed of Chucky, directed by Don Mancini in his directorial debut. He finally stepped into the director's chair after all these movies that he wrote and everything, his whole little baby the series is, and finally stepped in and directed this one. And directed the next two also, and I love it. We have Jennifer Tilly again, obviously, and obviously Brad Dourif, and we have Redman in this, which rappers in horror movies, it doesn't really do anything for me, but like, he's not in this a lot, and it's sure as shit better than Busta Rhymes doing Kung Fu and Michael Myers in Halloween Resurrection, so I'll take this over that any day. So let's talk about the movie. This is such a polarizing, this is like the most polarizing movie in the whole franchise, like by far. Even though I see a lot of people put 3 as their last, like I do. But I said in the last video for Broad Chucky that people who don't like horror comedies or comedy in their horror and stuff like that, I can see that 100%. Like, some people just love their straight horror, don't like comedy at all in it, and that's fine. But I'll never understand people who love Bride of Chucky but shit all over this movie. I don't get it. Like, they're in the same vein, same style, same tone. They're the most over-the-top, ridiculous movies in this franchise. And for me, it just works 100%. Like, this is an hysterical movie. So is Bride. Just complete ridiculousness throughout the whole movies. And I mean, this whole premise, as I've said, for this, the whole series is totally insane. But just, the humor just works for me. Like, I like horror comedies and stuff, if they're done right. And I've talked about this in, I forget what video it was, Tucker and Dale versus Evil maybe, all about horror comedies, and that it's really hard to find that mix between both of them in your movie. Just balancing horror and comedy the right way in your film if you're making a horror comedy. But I'm not going to talk too much about that. But you know you're in for a ride when the movie starts with semen flying at your face, like with the whole opening credits and everything in this movie. I feel like it's so funny. And then we get the whole dream sequence with Glen, Glenda. Like, that's going to be a whole thing to, if I say Glen or Glenda, you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to keep saying Glen, Glenda the whole time. But that we get the whole dream sequence with Glen, and who doesn't like a doll? Like, the girl opens up the package and the whole family sees this doll and they're like, oh, he's hideous, and like the dad is like, yeah, it's an ugly doll and stuff, and she's like, it's staring at me, I don't like it, and then just throws it in her toy chest. Like, wouldn't you just get rid of the doll, like throw it away? Like, you're just like asking to be murdered by this thing by keeping it around in your toy chest. And then I love the POV shot as Glenn kills the dad when he runs at him with the knife, and then they fall over the banister to the ground. That's such a cool POV shot. Really, really cool. And then the mom gets killed in the shower, psycho-esque scene stuff. And then the whole thing, you're pissing your pants, you're pissing your pants. So then he gets woken up and it's what the hell's his name? Psycho Pete or Psycho something. You're pissing your pants. That shit's so funny. And he's a ventriloquist that uses Glenn in his act and everything, knowing he's alive and stuff. And I like how they mentioned that he found him in a cemetery in the States, like whatever it was, like 6 years ago or something, to match the timeline up with Bride. But like, if he found him that long ago, we see him at the end of Bride, and like, it's just a little monstrous baby. So like, did he find him as a baby and grow him up, like, and was with him the whole time, like as he grew into Glenn, like as we see him now? Or was he like voodoo, like I said in the last movie? It covers everything. So they saying this, that it's a voodoo pregnancy and stuff, and that's why like she's pregnant like a day afterwards, after they do the whole artificial insemination thing. So maybe the baby just grows into a full-grown doll like after like a few days or something. I don't know. It makes no sense. But voodoo, that's how you make sense of anything in this whole franchise. Just the whole thing with with him thinking he's Japanese is so funny. Like, come on, like really? Like, people don't think that is so funny. And the Made in Japan thing, like on his arm and everything, and then we see it on Chucky's arm when we've never seen that before and stuff. Like, yeah, like just a neat little inclusion, I guess. But like, don't forget in Bride, like Tiffany put him all together, like Frankenstein style, or from all like different doll parts and stuff. So maybe his arm had it on there. We just didn't see it in Bride. But I don't know. That's how I explain it away. But the whole thing with him being like, I know I'm an orphan, like I know I'm hideous or whatever, and I know that I'm Japanese. And he starts asking about his parents to himself. He's like, I always wonder about my parents. Were they Zen masters? Did they serve the emperor? Like, that's so funny that, like I said, like the comedy in this movie just works 100% for me. But I totally can see how it doesn't work for other people. Like, absolutely. Tilly's assistant, Joan, is so fucking beautiful, man. She is such a sexy woman. It really sucks when she dies in this movie. And how fucking tragic her death is, man. Like, that's brutal shit. And then Glen escapes from, psychic or psycho, whatever his name is. And the shot of him running down the street, Glen and stuff, like, he should be a fucking track star. Like, he is, like, flying through the air. And getting to that truck to get away from this guy. Like, he should run for track and in like voodoo doll school if they ever send him there. The whole hating Julia Roberts thing that goes throughout this movie is hysterical. It's so funny, and I agree. Fucking just for the fact alone, and I mentioned this in my Requiem for a Dream video, that just the fact that Julia Roberts beat out Ellen Burstyn for best performance in Requiem for a Dream is a fucking crime, and I hate Julia Roberts just for that. So just hearing that throughout this movie is just so funny. And then when Glen finally gets to Chucky and Tiffany, that they're making a movie out of them and everything like that, the chant, like I said, always changes throughout this whole movie. Like, he has the heart of Dembala and everything. That makes sense that he had it, that they left it in the cemetery, and they even made a note to take a shot of that at the end of Bride of Chucky. They have a shot of the amulet on the ground and stuff after the dolls are killed. So it makes sense that he would have it. But there's only 3 words this time. It's just like the first words and then awake. And that works somehow. So and then they wake up and they ask his name and stuff, and he says shit face, and then Chucky just starts laughing hysterically. Like, oh, it's so funny that his name is shit face. And then killing the technician when he goes to work on Tiffany, and he opens the back, and there's, like, you see like human body parts inside of them. And again, with the whole human thing and stuff, every time they come back to life, it's like they reset the clock on being human. But in this movie, as soon as they get brought back to life, like, they're full on human again. So again, voodoo fucking explains it all away. But that's such a great kill. They wrap the wire around his neck and stuff, and both of them pull, and his head comes flying into the air and stuff, and the blood squirting out. Like I said in a few videos ago, like, there's not a lot of gore in the first, like, few movies, and it doesn't really need it. But, like, this movie has some great effects, and, like, yeah, it's a lot of it's CGI and stuff, but awesome kills in this movie, like, for sure. And then the whole fighting over Glen and Glenda and stuff, and that it's a son or it's a daughter and everything, like, this is like the first, like, one of the first, like, gender fluid, like, characters in, like, a horror film and stuff, like a popular, like, horror franchise and stuff, and they handle it very well in this. Like, it's very well implemented and everything. And, you know, Don Mancini is gay in real life and stuff, so he just, handles it so well and, like, pokes fun at certain things that it's great to see that he's able to, poke fun at all these different things that he's probably dealt with in the past, like being made fun of and being criticized for how he is, which is fucked up. But just seeing that he's able to have a sense of humor about it and everything is great. And it's the whole thing with Glen, like that whole scene with him, like, laying like a baby and stuff with the bow around his head, like that's so cute. That's so fucking funny. He just has the pink bow around his head, and then they have their whole little promise not to kill and everything, and, like, Chucky's just totally not having it. He's like, no, a million times no. Like, like, it just, this movie and the last one and Bride, they just, like, if it wasn't for Bride of Chucky and then this one, like, we probably wouldn't have any Chucky after 3, like, because 3 didn't do as well And like I said, it's my least favorite in the franchise. But even at the box office and stuff back then, like, and Don Mancini even said he was running out of ideas and everything like that. So like, if it wasn't for Bride of Chucky, especially, and then this one, like, we probably wouldn't have any Chucky after the third one. Like, we wouldn't have Curse of Chucky, Cult of Chucky. We wouldn't have the TV series. We maybe, thankfully, wouldn't have the remake because that's terrible. But I'll probably review the remake too and talk about it just to give it another chance. I mean, I've seen it 2 times, but I did not like it each time. But I'll give it another chance if it's streaming anywhere, and maybe knock that out like after the next 2 movies. But that whole thing with them promising not to kill and stuff, and Chucky crosses his fingers behind his back and stuff, and then the whole thing with I always confuse Jennifer Tilly and Tiffany. It's so hard in this movie, especially with Jennifer Tilly playing herself. Which there's great meta humor in this, like, and I've talked about this in my Scream discussion and stuff, which I said right at the beginning of that. I never cared for Scream. Never liked it. The original, there's a few things that I like about it, and that's about it. And the rest of the series, I just do not care for at all. And I mentioned that, and I'm not going to talk about this a lot. If you want to hear my thoughts on it, go check out the Scream discussion I did. But because it uses all the meta humor and all that self-referential stuff, but because it still takes itself semi-seriously as a slasher film, it just doesn't work for me. In a movie like this, you cannot take any of this seriously. Like, this is just ridiculous to the millionth degree. So that this is just absolutely insane, and you're just supposed to take it that way. And it works for that reason and stuff, where Scream just doesn't work. Alright, forget about Scream, but like I said, if you want to hear my thoughts on that, just watch that video. But their whole little, like, killings and addiction and everything, and that Rome wasn't built in a day and everything, and her calling the hotline and stuff when she's about to slip and stuff. That's such great stuff. Like, so funny. Then they had the plan to take over Redman and Jennifer Tilly's bodies and artificially inseminate her to get her pregnant and everything. And then I love when Chucky goes in the bathroom and he starts looking through the magazines to jerk off to, and he's like, too tall. I'm like, too whatever. Then he gets to Fangoria. And he's like, alright, this is the one. Like, in Fangoria magazine, this doll is a doll is masturbating to Fangoria magazine. Like, if that doesn't, like, set the tone for this movie and know what you're getting into and stuff, like, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. Like, that's absolutely insane. Then we had the paparazzi guy and stuff with the whole taking pictures from the outside, and he's taking pictures of Chucky masturbating and stuff. He's like a masturbating midget. Dude, it's so funny. The whole thing when they're driving to, when him and Glen are like working the pedals and everything. I always found that weird because in Bride of Chucky, they're like thinking of how to get to Jersey, and Chucky specifically says like, oh yeah, I'll steer the wheel and you can work the pedals. We're fucking dolls and stuff, and she freaks out. But yet in this movie, that's exactly what they do. Like, Chucky's steering the wheel and Glen's working the pedals. Like, that's so funny. Yeah, then we see Britney Spears get killed, which I mean, it's terrible, but it's hysterical at the same time. So she's driving and she flips him off, and then he just like cuts her off, and the car explodes. And that's the one thing that like dates this movie is like his line of like, "Oops, I did it again" and stuff. Like, I roll my eyes at that all the time. And like, 25, 30 years from now, when people see this movie, younger generations, they have no idea who Britney Spears is. Like, it's just not going to work at all. Like for any of them, but it still works for me as I grew up with Britney Spears and stuff being all popular and everything. So, and then we get the whole kill with the paparazzi guy and stuff, which is awesome. Like, again, CGI, yeah, but like it looks good and it fits the tone of the movie. And that just Chucky's getting ready to kill this guy, and Glenda is just like totally against killing and wants nothing to do with this and tries to stop it. He's no, and just he falls into the rack, and the sulfuric acid crashes onto his head, and just his face melts away. And then just all of Chucky's dialogue of just like, you're a fucking natural, kid. Like, and Glenn is just sitting there in horror, like, I didn't mean to. No, like, he fell into the and then they take the picture and stuff with Chucky and Glenn on both sides of him. Like, it's such a Chucky Charles Lee Ray thing to do. And like I was saying, like, this and Bride, like, such a good job they do with really like developing Chucky's character and Tiffany's character too, like especially in this movie. Just the way that like the character development's done with the two of them, and like I said in the video for Bride, if they had like a podcast with just in character, like with fucking Chucky and Tiffany just talking for hours, that's comedy gold right there. Like seriously, like that absolutely would be awesome. And I never noticed this because maybe it's just because it's been so long since I watched the whole franchise like back to back and everything. But when Tiffany calls, when she's looking through the AA book and she just skips like fucking like the first like 7-8 steps, and she just goes right to like calling people and admitting that you did wrong to people and everything, and she's like, oh, this one. I never got that it was the wife of the cop from the beginning of Bride of Chucky, that Tiffany slits his throat and everything. Maybe like I said, because I haven't watched it back to back in so long, and I never really remembered the name Officer Bailey and stuff, but she calls Mrs. Bailey and stuff and says, a few years ago I killed your husband and I just wanted you to know that I'm very, very sorry and stuff. And then the wife is just like hysterical on the other end of the line and stuff and like crying. And she's just like, all right, Miss Bailey, thank you. And just hangs up. Dude, that's gold. That's so funny. And the whole running gag with Jennifer Tilly's voice. Like from the beginning, like when Tiffany says that, like I love Jennifer Tilly and stuff, and Chucky's like, yeah, but that voice though, and that whole running meta gag of just both of them having the same voice, but like not liking each other's voice and everything, like is so well done. Like I really, really enjoy that every single time. Then her little Tiffany's slip in recovery when she guts Redman and stuff, and again, cool kill and stuff, with him just sitting there at the table and everything, after them arguing and her saying she's pregnant and him saying he got a vasectomy as soon as he moved to Hollywood and everything, and she's on the phone, and then Tiffany just guts him, and then Tiffany starts, Jennifer Tilly, you see how I mix them up? Fucking, it's so easy to do that. And Jennifer Tilly is just like, I gotta go out, like let yourself out, and drop dead. And as soon as she walks out, like his head hits the fucking table, like so good. Then the whole scene and stuff with Glen just screaming out, "You're tearing me apart," and what about what I want and stuff, and it's handled so well, like I said earlier, like with just like whether wants to be a boy or a girl and stuff, and then just the whole thing earlier in the movie, like the whole scene of them checking his private parts is just ridiculous. Like it's completely ridiculous, but it's so funny. Like I said in the last movie, that Chucky's anatomically correct, and apparently so is Tiffany, is just insane. Like there's no way these good guy people were making big ass like doll floppy dicks on these good guy dolls. And then coincidentally, the doll that Tiffany in the first movie, in Bride of Chucky, buys for the bride for Chucky has a working vagina, like I guess. Like none of that makes sense. It's so insane, but it's so funny. But it's all "you're tearing me apart" thing, and then like what does he want? And they ask him, he's like, I want to be a boy, but being a girl would be nice too. And like Chucky's just like getting pissed, like he can't deal with this at all. And the whole driver, what is his name, Stan or Steve or something like that, I don't remember, but his whole like thing with Jennifer Tilly, like being in love with her, and his whole little practice, like we see like a few times in the movie, like Jennifer, I love you, Jennifer, I love you, like that's so funny too, man. Like I said, this movie is just hysterical for me. It works so well, and like just the evolution of this franchise. And I said even in the first video for this whole franchise in Child's Play 1 that there's been comedy in this franchise since the very first movie. Obviously nowhere near as this and Bride of Chucky, but the first 3 movies definitely had comedy in it, and they were definitely just but ridiculous in their own right, and there was 100% comedy infused throughout this whole franchise. And just the evolution of it, from going from those first 3 to Bride and this being completely over the top, then being able to bring it back around to more straight horror with Curse, and then more humor injected back into it with Cult and everything. It's such an interesting progression of this franchise, like it really is, and all of it works for me 100%. Like I said in Bride, that I view this as like 3 different chapters. 1 through 3 is Andy's story. This and Bride of Chucky is Tiffany's story, and just Chucky's family in general. Like, that's his chapter. Then Curse and Cult is Nika's story and everything. And then the TV show just ties all of it together, and it's just so brilliantly done, man. Everything Don Mancini does is just awesome. Just everything. He's such a fucking genius. And Joan's death, like I said, she's so gorgeous, this woman. And just seeing her get fucking lit up and burnt alive and falling over the banister and shit, and the smoke coming up and stuff. It's a great scene, but like every single time, like, damn, man, they really had to kill her off. Like, I love me some Joan. And then we find out that it was Glenda, well, I guess in this case Glenda, but that it was her who killed her and stuff, which you could tell. I mean, it's not a reveal at all, like, from the back and stuff. Like, it's obviously a wig and different hair than Tiffany's doll, so it's not a real reveal or anything. Like, nobody, I don't think anyone didn't see that coming. But then her just like losing her mind, Glenda, and just starts I'm a real lady killer and everything, and then Tiffany just smacks her in the face like airplane style and like snaps her out of it and everything. That's so funny. And then we have the whole labor scene, and then with them just waiting and stuff for Tilly to give birth and everything. And then it's a boy, and then we got another one here, and the Chucky, ay. And it's a girl, so now they don't know what the hell to do with Glen, Glenda, and stuff. And then we have my favorite scene in this whole franchise. And I said this in the Bride video last, that Bride has some of my favorite scenes and favorite lines in the whole franchise, but this movie has my favorite scene by far in the whole franchise. Which to some people, yeah, is ludicrous, but I'll explain why. Just the whole scene when the cops are coming and stuff, and just the way it's shot and edited and stuff, of just with the fucking driver dead over Jennifer Tilly and her screaming, and then it cuts to the babies crying, and it gets to Tiffany saying, "Do it now, Chucky," and everything, and then shots of Glen and Glenda, and back to Chucky, and just the chaos going on. And then Chucky just can't take it anymore. He's like, "Everybody just shut up." He's like, "I can't take this." He's like, "I have a big, like, tolerance for nuts." He's like, and he starts going on and explaining that, like, this is what it takes to be human. Like, I'll take my chances being a doll. He's like, "What's so great about being human anyway?" And it starts going on that. Like, you get old and sick and you can't get it up anymore. And then him just saying and embracing who he is. And just saying, like, as a doll, I'm fucking infamous. You know, I'm one of the most notorious slashers in history. And awesome. So good. Like, that is such a great scene. That whole scene, man. Like, that's just Chucky finally coming to terms with himself and accepting who he is. And it's true what he says. Like, you look back, he is one of the most notorious slasher characters in the history of horror movies. Like, you have Michael Myers, you have Jason, you have Freddy, you have Leatherface, you know, and you got Chucky. Like, it's so true. And just the fact that he addresses that, and that they were able to write that in because they knew at that point how iconic Chucky was and everything. That whole scene is just brilliant to me. I absolutely love it. And it's, like I said, that's why this movie is just so insane that they even address it. Like, and they straight up bring it up and stuff. With Chucky, like, look around, this is nuts. And it is. We're watching 3 dolls, 2 that are inhabited by the souls of serial killers, after artificially inseminating with a doll's semen, after jerking off the Fangoria magazine, being inserted into her and having a voodoo pregnancy. What? Like, what the fuck is this? Like, if someone didn't see any of the Child's Play franchise or any of these movies, and you just showed them that one scene, anyone would be like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, what is going on? Like, there's no way. Like, what is happening on screen right now? It's so insane. That is just hysterical, man. It works so fucking well. Then they end up getting taken away until he's brought to the hospital and everything. And then you have Chucky crashing through the door with the axe, Shining style, and makes fun of that. He's like, I just can't think of a thing to say. And So good. And Chucky kills Tiffany and stuff after she tries transferring into Tilly's body. And then we get the Glen doing kung fu kung fu against. And it's funny that I brought up at the beginning about Busta Rhymes doing kung fu, but I mean, it's Busta Rhymes. This is a doll. Like, this is an insanely ridiculous movie. So it works. Like, it's still totally like over the top and ridiculous, but it's, for some reason, it just works, and it plays into the whole he's Japanese thing, and all the lines throughout the movie of him saying like arigato okasan and everything, and just like I took martial arts when I was younger and stuff, and so I know the whole like arigato thing, and like we used to have like this thing that we used to say at the beginning of like class every time, like, but just hearing him like say all that shit is so funny, and doing kung fu against his father and everything, and then taking the axe and just saying, "This is your son, you chip off the old block," and cuts all his limbs off and then cuts his head off and everything. Awesome. And even Jennifer Tilly helps him because she sees that he's not an evil doll like the other, like his parents are, like Chucky and Tiffany. Like, he doesn't like killing and stuff. I mean, even though he's hacking his father apart and stuff, but she pushes the axe over to him to help him. It's really, really cool. Then we have the ending. It's 5 years later, and Jennifer Tilly, who we find out, is Tiffany, that the spell worked and everything. And I love how they use like the green eyes and stuff. Like, even like when Tiffany's a doll and stuff, she has the green eyes, indicating that it's Tiffany. Then the same at the end here, after she kills the nanny, and the nanny's talking about how Glen is an angel and stuff, and Glenda is just not a good girl and everything. And then you have the creepy shot of Glenda looking through the window and everything. Like, she does look really creepy in this movie. Like, at the end, they did a really good job with that. And then she wants to quit and stuff, and they say, "I will miss you," and Tiffany just beats her over the head with the Tilly. See, every time, and I cannot separate Jennifer Tilly from Tiffany in these movies. And Tilly takes the Tiffany doll and just beats the shit out of this nanny to death, man. And then just like her eyes, like I said, glow green and everything. And then they're having like the birthday party for Glen and Glenda, and just like, and I think it's cool how like she said, like, she gets the package and stuff, and she says like, weird, doesn't say from who. And that's exactly in the dream sequence at the beginning of the movie, when the family in Glen's dream gets the doll and says like, yeah, it's weird, and it doesn't have a return address, it doesn't say who sent it and stuff. It's a cool little wraparound for that, like including that. And then we have Glen, giving his little inner monologue and stuff about, that is, he still knows his father loved him even though they had differences, and he still has the picture of him and Chucky with the paparazzi guy with his face melted off. Like, that's so funny. And then he just gets the package, and we see Chucky's arm, and then we see the whole him pissing his pants again, and the little eye twitching and stuff like that they throw in throughout the movie and stuff. And the arm just comes to life and attacks him, and that's the end, man. Like, it wasn't a lot to talk about in this movie, because for horror comedies and stuff, it's hard discussing them, because it's just so much of it relies on the funny lines and like the delivery and everything. That it's a lot harder to discuss horror comedies, or just comedies in general, than straight horror movies. And especially like straight horror movies that like have a lot of psychological aspects to them, or like theories and interpretations that you can really talk about and dive into and stuff. But what a fun movie, man. Like, this movie gets so much shit thrown at it, and like I said, I understand it completely. But like I said, for people who love Bride and don't like this movie, I always say everyone's entitled to their opinion 100%, but I would love to hear from those people and just explain why. Just say, like, I need to know, like, why do you love Bride of Chucky but despise this one? Like, if you love Bride of Chucky and enjoy this one but just not as much as the rest of the movies and stuff, I understand that completely. But for the people who love Bride and hate this movie, that I would just need an explanation from. Like, I would just love to hear that and hear why, and hear like their thoughts on that. So if anyone sees this and feels that way about both movies and stuff, let me know, because I would love to just hear your opinions on that, because it is so interesting to me how similar these movies are, and just straight up insanity throughout both of them, but that there's such a big difference in opinion comparing the two. But alright, that's C to Chucky, and I'm moving on to Curse after this, and I'll probably have Curse and Cult and close out the franchise by early morning. It's like 9, almost 10 o'clock, so I got all night. So I'll get those two knocked out, and like I said, if I can find the remake streaming somewhere, I'll begrudgingly suffer through it for a third time just to knock that one out, which, like I said, I do not care for at all. But we'll talk about that in that video if I can track it down. Alright guys, that's Seed of Chucky, Hysterical, and moving on to Curse of Chucky right after this. Alright, take care.